Hello and welcome to the Narrowing Path, walking the spiritual walk. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein. Thank y'all for joining me again tonight as we go through and we do today's daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditation. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading, as this will be the first time that I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with y'all. So it's bringing us into the last week of September. Or excuse me. Wow, I don't know where my brain is of December. And I'm really excited to see how this is all going to wrap up. So I do want to say I put up a poll on the 21st. If anyone listening wants to just jump on and just go ahead and vote, just so I get a little bit of feedback from the audience right now, because I want to hear what you guys are interested in. I've got a couple of selections up there. One is another daily reader for the next year. If you would like to see this podcast continue to do daily readings, next would be a breakdown of the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And then there's the third option, which was Morning and Evening Meditations by James Allen. It's another book with it, I believe it has 31 days of daily meditations that you can just go through and do over and over again. And there's one in the morning and one at night that I would jump on and do kind of 2 episodes a day for the 31 days just to get the meditations in. So go ahead, check out that poll. Again, it's on December 21st. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback. So here we go. Let's go ahead and we'll get to today's reading from December 23rd of James Allen's Daily Meditations. Suffering is a purifying and perfecting process. We become obedient by the things which we suffer. To inflict suffering upon others is to become more deeply involved in ignorance. But to suffer ourselves is to come nearer to enlightenment. Pain teaches men how to be kind and compassionate. It at last makes them tender-hearted and thoughtful for the sufferings of others. When a man does a cruel deed, he thinks in his ignorance that is the end of it, but it is only the beginning. Attached to the deed is a train of consequences which will plunge him in a tormenting hell of pain. For every wrong thought we think or unkind deed we do, we must suffer some form of mental or bodily pain. And the kind of pain will be in accordance with the initiative, thought, or act. By acquainting man with suffering, it enables him to feel for the sufferings of others. First of all, I think this is fantastic. As always, it's an important topic to cover, actually. It's not a fun one per se, because this is the stuff that people want to run from. These are the suffering is something that people try to avoid at all costs. But the funny part is that out of the desire to avoid suffering, we suffer more most of the time. The actual act of running from and trying to escape suffering causes suffering all the more. The fear, the worry, the resentment, the disappointment, depression. It's huge. It comes right along with it. So I'm excited to get into this a little bit today. So here we go. This is the opening line again. Suffering is a purifying and perfecting process. We become obedient by the things which we suffer. And I know that's not the most fun thing to consider, right? It's just not. To think about we talk about the purifying process, the perfecting process, this process of aligning and going towards our ideal, right? That's what we strive to do, is become more godlike, more righteous, more Christ-like. But to do that, we have to suffer. And it's not for the sake of suffering do we suffer, meaning we don't just sit in suffering because we think that's the atonement we need, or that's the just punishment per se that we want to assign ourselves. We're meant to walk through it, you know? We're meant to grow through it. We're meant to be changed by suffering. And it's an important distinction. To inflict suffering upon others is to become more deeply involved in ignorance. That's a pretty good line, actually. To try to create suffering in the world really shows where you are in your understanding of spirituality and how the world works, in my personal opinion. And that's what he's saying here. You're indulging in ignorance. But to suffer ourselves is to come nearer to enlightenment. Now, we don't go do things to make us suffer in the sense of I'm intentionally going to go mess something up, hurt somebody else, do something different to suffer more myself because I believe that brings me closer to God. That is not the point. Suffering for the sake of suffering is really just vanity and pride. To make your verify, validate, and verify yourself, so you can feel as though your resentment and selfishness is justified. Pain teaches men how to be kind and compassionate. So we don't just suffer for the sake of suffering. We're supposed to walk through the suffering that comes from our own opinions and decisions. We're supposed to walk through that. The suffering is actually a cleansing process to remove self and ego from the picture. Excuse me for yawning there. We're supposed to grow and be molded by it. It's a learning opportunity. It's a growth opportunity. Pain teaches men how to be kind and compassionate because a lot of times we have to learn those things. I do repeatedly in different ways. It at last makes them tender hearted and thoughtful for the suffering of others. That's empathy, right? That's what people talk so much about. It's empathy. When you know someone's been through a similar struggle to you, or at least pain in their life, right? You have a tendency to believe them more. You have a tendency to think they're more authentic because it's relatable. You have some compassion for another human being and what they're going through. That's important. When a man does a cruel, this concept is so. This next part is huge, huge to understand. When a man does a cruel deed, he thinks in his ignorance, meaning just he doesn't know, but that that excuse me, that is the end of it, but it is only the beginning. So we all think we build ourselves up to go do this thing, or it's an impulsive act that we take, and we think after it's done, we just have to walk away with it, away from it. No one saw us. It's all going to be fine. No one got hurt. Da, 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 da. But the guilt on our conscience is huge. becomes crippling. The act itself is just the beginning. The emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical toll that will take on you eventually is severe. Attached to the deed is a train of consequences which will plunge him in a tormenting hell of pain. There's always consequences. 100% of the time will you get consequences from your actions. The nature of your actions and the nature of your thoughts will dictate the consequences that you get, positive or negative, the results of your actions, right? But the nature and the nature of your action and the nature of your thoughts that led to the action will always shine through. And also, as soon as the action is taken, the consequences truly are outside of your hands. So your actions are dictating your circumstance and consequence due to that law of cause and effect. For every wrong thought we think or unkind deed we do, we suffer some of the mental. Sorry, I'm tripping over the words tonight, guys. For every wrong thought we think or unkind deed we do, we must suffer some kind of mental or bodily pain. And the kind of pain will be in accordance with the initiative, thought, or act. So every time we make a wrong decision, we take a selfish action, self-centered behavior, or opinion, or idea, or whatever it might be, we will get the corresponding suffering from our actions. There's no ifs, and, or buts about it. It will show up. Sometimes it's not always the obvious repercussions, but a heavy heart and a heavy soul will chew up somebody just as quickly. I promise you, I've seen it. It manifests mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. People start to change. The sheer size that a really poor decision that you're trying to run from grows into is just absolutely incredible. It's an it's an amazing thing to watch these things occur in people and and what it results in blows me away. No. This is the last line here. By acquainting men with suffering, it enables him to feel for the sufferings of others. There we go. We're talking about compassion and empathy and seeing it from someone else's perspective again. Because we've walked through our own suffering, because we've walked through the pain, we can walk next to someone else because we've gotten out. We can show them how it worked for us. What a marvelous opportunity we get to help another person and let them know they're not alone and walk through this new life with them. So, but all right, well there we go. That is the end of tonight's reading. Again, jump on over to the 21st podcast and give us a vote as to what you would prefer to hear us talking about next year. So thank you all so much. I appreciate your time as always, and I'm looking forward to it tomorrow again. So until next time, thanks.